Hope everyone's having a really wonderful day after Thanksgiving Day here on Friday, Black Friday. A lot of folks out and about, families together, people going out into the woods, going to the hunting camp. The roads are packed. Thank God the weather's relatively good, so it will accommodate that. But I hope you had a great Thanksgiving with your family, and I really hope you didn't eat too much. But you know what? If you did, this is the one day in the year that you can actually be okay with that, because everyone is doing that, including myself. Let's move on to my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune and talk about the latest on the Saints. They had a bye week this past week, and barreling toward an important game Sunday. The Saints are 5-5 and lead. When you look at the list of all the NFL teams and you see the Saints right there as the number 4 because they're leading their division, it's hard to get your head around that given how they've been playing. But that's the way it is. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Ricky. Happy post-Thanksgiving. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving day with the family. And yeah, it feels like fall now. It's a good feeling.
It really does. It is odd to see the Saints leading their division given the situation, isn't it?
Well, yeah, if you just gauge the fan base, the restlessness right now is off the charts. And I think I will say this, I think it's indicative of how intelligent the Saints fan base is, because they know that even though this team is 5-5, there's a lot of problems. And so the sense is this isn't good enough. They've seen the standard before. And so I think it's certainly, fair to be upset even though the team's 5-5.
I think restless is a great way to say it. Dennis Allen said this week that the Saints offense is trending in the right direction. I don't know about that. What's your thoughts on that comment?
Yeah, I think what he's saying is he's seeing some things, that they've corrected, that he likes those areas. I think the offensive line's a good example. The offensive line's gotten better. They did run the ball a little bit better against Minnesota. They just didn't stick with it because once they got behind, they had to kind of abandon the running game. So I think that's what he's talking about. But they've got a long way to go to be, where they want to be or to match up with some of the elite offenses in this league.
Hey, so if you think about, one of the things they had to do to deal with an offensive line that in the early stages of this season struggled mightily is they had to hold a running back. They had to run, put the tight end back. And Foster Moreau, he's not been as big into the pass game as you would have expected, but he's a good blocker. The others are okay at it, but not great at it. Now that you've got the offensive line back, do you think maybe we'll start to see Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau play a little bit heavier in the passing game?
Well, I think that will definitely take place now that Mike Thomas is out. They put Mike Thomas on the injured reserve list, the short-term injured reserve. So he's going to be down for 4 games. And what Mike Thomas was basically doing, Ricky, was he was kind of absorbing or catching all the balls that normally would have gone maybe to Juwan Johnson or the tight end. They run a lot of these stick routes, these underneath routes under the zone defense or in the holes of the zone defense. And a lot of times that would have been the tight end. Mike Thomas is kind of like a tight end. He's a big guy, 6'3", and got a big frame. So he was doing a lot of that dirty work underneath. I think that's going to now go to the tight ends. I mean, they're going to work in A.T. Perry, the rookie. I'm not sure he's ready for that role yet. That's a tough role. I give Mike Thomas a lot of credit because, as you saw in that Vikings game, first 2 plays of the game, they went to Thomas, and he took big hits on both plays, and eventually that did take a toll. He ended up getting put on injured reserve for 4 weeks. So I expect the tight end to be much more prominent now.
Well, the play he got hurt in, and it seemed almost guaranteed that he was going to get hurt. I mean, it's just the violence that he was having to deal with. You can't sustain that, can you?
No, I mean, look, eventually you're going to get hit in this game, and he was doing that, he was catching a lot of short balls. I mean, he was playing a role for this offense. We've talked about it before. Mike Thomas is not the guy he was in 2019. He's kind of their third option right now. He's playing a role. He's a role player, and so they've got to find somebody to fill that role. And man, it's such a violent game. You've got to have a big body to withstand some of this punishment. And that really does. That's why tight ends on most teams play that role. And when Juwan Johnson went down, Mike Thomas had to step in there. Now it's going to probably go back to Juwan.
Well, you see, listen, I'll remind people that during training camp, you on a regular basis came on the show to talk about how good Juwan Johnson looked. And of course, then he gets hurt. But he did look great in training camp, didn't he? Yeah,
look, I'm shocked he's not been a bigger player in this offensive scheme, but it might be because of the emergence of the receivers. It's funny, Ricky, you can talk individually, we're in this fantasy football world and we start talking about all the perimeter players and the receivers and tight ends and backs, but there's only so many balls that can go around. I mean, everybody can't catch can't be a factor on every play. And so, the way this offense has always worked, go back to the Drew Brees, Sean Payton days, is they've spread it around. And some games, certain players are going to be more prominent because of the way they're the defense is working, the coverage, who they're taking away. And so because Juwan Johnson missed some of these games and because Mike Thomas was filling that role, he's been kind of lost in the shuffle. I expect him to kind of become more prominent. And Derek Carr's got to look his way more, too. I mean, there's been some times where I've seen Juwan Johnson open, but maybe the ball went to someone else into the progression. That's just going to happen in the way they run this offense.
Well, look, we've got a star receiver. We've got Shaheed that can come. That is a great receiver. You've got running backs that can receive really well. You've got Juwan Johnson. He's still got a lot of targets, and then of course we've seen Taysom Hill come on strong. I still struggle to understand what the identity of this offense is.
Yeah, that's something I've written recently. Is you don't really know what this group is going to hang their hat on, right? And I would say this. I mean, it's something that they've kind of prided themselves on over the years, being multiple, being able to kind of morph their game plan each week into a different attack to attack the way different defenses come at them or different schemes that they face. So there is something to that. They've kind of always been that way a little bit, but the strength of this team is really yet to be identified. I mean, they're not really a great passing attack. They're very inconsistent. They can't run the ball very well. So they just don't seem to have a strength right now on offense.
What they were hoping to get in Derek Carr was a quarterback that was somewhere in the 10 to 12, 13, 14 ranking of the NFL, comes into the obviously it's going to take some while to get chemistry, but then he comes into the season and he's getting absolutely killed because of the play of the offensive line. And then he gets his shoulder hurt. And now he's got, concussion. It seems like the shoulder is not as big a deal. We just haven't been able to get a rhythm with him. We've seen it maybe one game, maybe a little bit of a little portions of other games. If they could ever get in their stride, you can see what is possible, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely potential there. Mm-hmm. I think the problem is, and we've talked about this before, it's not one thing, it's a lot of things. So, I go back to my analogy, the whack-a-mole analogy, like you bang one mole and then here comes another one popping up. And that's exactly what you just alluded to. The offensive line was struggling early. There was no Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Carr was finding his way in the offense, and then they fix one thing, and then all of a sudden now they've got Mike Thomas down, and Juwan Johnson's back, Thomas is out. So it's just, that's also, I should say, man. I mean, and I think this is important. That goes on with every team in the league. I mean, every team in the league's got their issues, and you got to manage it. And that's what coaching and management is all about. That's what leadership's all about. They had these issues when Sean Payton was there, and you got them fixed. And so that's really, to me, it's a bigger picture of like, how's this being managed? Because every team in the league's got injuries. Actually, most teams have more injuries than what the Saints are dealing with.
And then look at Minnesota. Look at that Minnesota game. You got a new quarterback. Of their stars, you got a really, really good tight end that they continue to go to over and over and over again. you had a really, really mobile quarterback, and that's killed the Saints. But this is a team that was missing a lot of its major players, and they got up 24-3 on the Saints. It was just It was so hard to watch.
Yeah, they didn't have Justin Jefferson, who's arguably the best receiver in the league, and then they were missing their top running back, and then their second running back went out like in the second or third quarter. So that's how the game is played at the NFL level. It's violent. Guys are going to get hurt. You got to be able to step up and fill in. So, and no one's going to feel sorry for you either. It's a merciless league. So, yeah, you got to manage. Josh Dobbs wasn't even on the Vikings roster 10 days before they played the Saints. That's crazy.
It is very, very crazy. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue to sort of analyze where we are with the Saints, and then of course the Atlanta game is coming up. They've designated who the quarterback is going to be. They're going to play a big time running game, so we got to be able to stop the run. We'll talk a little bit about the defense when we come back. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show on this day after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody is doing well and had a wonderful time with family and friends, and safe on the roads. I have my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune when we went to the break, just talking about the Saints and all this whack-a-mole that we're discussing. One issue arises, you get it taken care of, then another issue arises. One of the things that we have really struggled with this year is getting pressure on the quarterback. And this particular game with the announcing that Desmond Ridder is going to be starting the game for Atlanta, you have a situation where they're going to run the ball. So we've got to stop the run. Is that basically the story of this game?
Yes, no question about it. I mean, they got two great running backs, Bijan Robinson, who was a top 10 pick, and then Tyler Algier, I think it is, big back, kind of a power back. There's no secret. I mean, they're going to run this read option with Desmond Ridder, and every once in a while he's going to pull it and try and hit a receiver for a big gain. And look, they've struggled. I think they've lost 3 or 4 in a row. A lot of close games. They've lost a lot of games at the buzzer, right in they've had a lead the whole time and lost. So they're a better team, I think, than their record indicates. They're much better defensively. I know David Onyemata, the former Saints player, has played really well for them defensively. Now, he missed the last game. Whether he's back or not, that'll be a big factor. But this is a big, big game. And I think the Saints can afford to lose it and still be okay. But if they win it, they really have a chance to kind of separate themselves from the rest of the division. So it's big in that way.
I'm surprised, and we won't get into a big discussion about Tampa Bay, but it looked like Tampa Bay was really moving in the right direction, but then they kind of stalled, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they were kind of overperforming a little early. I mean, they beat Minnesota in the opening game of the season. I would never predicted that. And if you looked at it now, you certainly wouldn't predict it. So they kind of stole some games early. I think, as people have got more tape on them now, they have a new offensive coordinator in there with new quarterback. It's how the league works. I mean, you come in with some new stuff and you can steal some games early, but everybody gets a beat on you, and then you got to evolve. And so I think people have kind of figured that Tampa offense out, and they're really struggling down that side of the ball.
Well, the Saints purposely made some changes on the defensive line. They let 3 players go. They picked up a couple of players, sort of medium range players. I wouldn't say necessarily bargain basement price, but certainly medium tier level players on the defensive line. Then they picked up Brian Brzee, but they just haven't. It hasn't been what you would hope. Has it?
Yeah, I mean, you lose a guy like Onyemata in free agency. I mean, this is where we go back to the real crux of stuff we've talked about before. We talk about the salary cap and the Saints being, having to do all this salary cap magic. Well, it does matter. I mean, because you've lost a lot of good players in the defensive front because they couldn't or chose not to match contract offers. And 2 of them are going to be playing against the Saints on Sunday. And Caden Ellis, the young linebacker, and David Onyemata, those guys are starting for the Falcons, playing well. And they certainly have not, I don't think, been replaced with the same level player with the Saints because of the salary cap limitations. So these are some of the issues. I mean, defensively, it's been amazing they've been able to continue to play at a good level because of the amount of talent they've lost over the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, Trey Hendrickson's a Pro Bowl player for the Bengals. Von Bell left. Marcus Williams is starting for the Ravens. Alex Anzalone, a guy that a lot of Saints fans I don't think really appreciated. He's going to make the Pro Bowl this year. He's one of the best linebackers in the league. All those guys had a chance. The Saints had a chance to re-sign them. Now they're playing for other teams. So the fact that the Saints are still able to field a very quality defense is pretty amazing.
I really liked Alex Anzalone. I liked the way he played. I liked his leadership, his enthusiasm. He was all over the field. And again, it was a salary cap deal. He ran for the money and got it, didn't he?
Yeah, and look, he got paid. He didn't get paid tremendously. That's just it. I mean, they have to make Mickey Loomis and the front office has to make difficult decisions on who they want to pay and who they don't. And I think some of these they've made mistakes on, in my opinion. I mean, Trey Hendrickson's the exact kind of guy you pay. I mean, he was productive his last year. He was an ascending player, and he's easily the best pass rusher that they've had in the last 5 years. And they don't have pass. The biggest problem they've got right now defensively, in my opinion, is they don't have a pass rush. Carl Granderson's the best pass rusher they have, and he's solid. He's not an elite player. So that's part of the issue with these scrambling quarterbacks and these mobile quarterbacks. And, Ricky, it's not going any other way, but it's going to be more of an issue going forward. That's how the league is going. Everyone's going to have a mobile quarterback, so you've got to be able to address that part of your defense.
Well, listen, we've talked a lot about the secondary. Marshawn Lattimore shut down. Adebo coming on strong. Good depth there. Now Marshawn Lattimore is hurt. So how long do you think he's going to be out?
Well, we don't know. It's been very vague the way they've referenced it. I think sometime, whatever that means, is the way Dennis Allen's referenced it. I would think at least a couple weeks, or they would have put him on injured reserve. That means you have to be out for 4 games. Mike Thomas has to miss a minimum of 4 games. So you'd have to think they didn't put him. They didn't choose to go that route. That he'll be back in at least a week or two. It's an ankle injury. We know that he got rolled on there around the pile. That happens. But he creates a domino effect in the secondary. When he's not there, all of a sudden, Paulson Adebo now, who's been playing lights out, he's going to become the number 1 corner. Alante Taylor steps up. Ike Yadam, the young guy that played well early in the year, he's going to have to step in the starting lineup. So it just kind of creates a little bit of a fall down or a decline in the talent level in that area of the team.
Well, good. It's a good thing we have the depth. I mean, it will be interesting to see how they perform because they haven't had to deal with a scenario where Lattimore is out. But, a year or so ago, we were worried to death about the secondary, and it's not as big a concern as it was. I mean, we got bigger problems. It's probably the biggest problem on the entire field is, not being able to put pressure on the quarterback and not being able to catch and contain running quarterbacks. At the end of the day, that's our biggest thorn in our side, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, it's not that big a deal this week against Atlanta because Desmond Ridder really is limited as a passer. I mean, he's not a great passer. Now, they've got some weapons in the passing game. Drake London was a top 10 pick. Kyle Pitts at tight end. They've got weapons. It's just they're not very sophisticated in their passing attack. So if you're going to miss Marshawn Lattimore, this isn't a bad week for them to miss, but now they've got to lock down the running game. So those corners, everyone in the secondary is going to have to be involved in trying to stop the run, because if the Saints can limit their running game, I just can't see Atlanta consistently putting together offensive drives against this team with their passing attack.
I so look forward to the Saints putting it all together. Do you think we're going to see Jameis Winston this weekend?
No, I think Derek Carr will be back. I mean, I think the bye week came at the perfect time. He should get through concussion protocol. But we'll know, obviously, on game day. But all indications were that Carr was going to be back.
Listen, with all that said, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I know that you're barreling towards serious deadlines on your book. You're a really important book. Wait, remind me the name of it again.
A Life Impossible.
A Life Impossible, and what a wonderful journey it's been. I know we've talked about it every week, but you got a deadline at noon today, don't you?
Yeah, so we're up against it. Turn the manuscript in today, so it's a big day for us, and we're gonna need every minute, Ricky, to get it turned in.
the story of Steve Gleason, as much a story about life. You shared with me a note that one of the editors shared with you, and it's a raw book. It's a tough book. It's an inspiring book. I loved that, what you shared with me. What a wonderful note from someone who has been in the business for a long time and really understands how to read books like this. And you guys, I think you have a winner on your hands. Yeah,
well, just for listeners out there and viewers, Steve is going to be at the game on Sunday in Atlanta. He's flying over on Arthur Blank's private jet, and they're going to do a special ceremony with him and Tim Green, a former Atlanta Falcon great, who also is battling ALS. There's going to be a big feature on NFL Network on Sunday that Jen Hale did. So Steve will be prominent, and he told me, he goes, I wonder if I'm going to get booed over there because of the block punt. I go, I don't think you have to worry about that, buddy.
No, I don't think so. But that's interesting that Arthur Blank is sending his plane for him.
Yeah. I think I think Gail Benson's jet is in the shop, I think is what I heard. Yeah. So, Arthur Blank gonna fly Steve over. So it should be a special ceremony. I'm sure it'll be involved in the broadcast on Sunday.
So Jeff, how's your jet doing? Mine's it's been in the shop for a while. I haven't been able to use it either.
Yeah. I'm in the market for a new one, Ricky. So hopefully I get a new one.
You'll drop about $30 million or something like that to play in their league. That's for sure. Hey, listen, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, man. We'll see you next week.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you then. Take care.
Hey, it's been great to catch up with Jeff Duncan. Hey, look, when we come back, you may have heard my conversation with Matt McDonald when we talked about the role that WCPR plays in helping them reach some ticket sales, milestones that are, when compared to major markets, we're so far ahead of them. It's because of this connection that WCPR has with this market. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that with Kenny Vest, the general manager. And I'm going to get Kyle to join in, and we'll have those conversations as well. We'll see you after this break.